Hey, what's up, guys? It's Kyle Sela. I'm the founder of AVA Cooling Technology, and we've been basically selling these guys our anti-fatigue charge bar for about 6 months now. We've learned a lot over these last 6 months. I've personally been using a prototype and now our charge bar for, almost a year now. And so I've done hundreds and hundreds of workouts at this point with the cooling device. And now we've had people all over the world who are giving us feedback on what they've learned and how this is helping them, and what type of workouts are optimal for this. So one thing we've learned is that we need to reiterate that this needs to be used with water inside. Okay, so whether you cool it off in a fridge or whether you just put cold water into it, it needs to have water in it to allow it to resist the rise in temperature that your body's going to put into it as much as possible. Okay, so water and the bar both have a very high specific heat capacity, and that's going to allow it to accept a lot of heat from your body without it changing its temperature very much. Okay, so what we've seen from certain models that we've used with temperature gauges is that this will hold its temperature range for up to an hour or so during a workout if you're holding it intermittently between sets or between intervals. Okay, so if you set this at the low end of the effective range, which is 45 degrees, and you're holding it intermittently, you're going to not get above that 60-degree mark for about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how much you're holding it. Okay, so that is the effective range, 45 degrees Fahrenheit to roughly 60 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where you want to have your cooling device set at from a temperature standpoint. So if you set it at the low end at 45, you should be able to use it intermittently for 45 minutes to an hour before you need to recool it. Okay, the advantage of our device, right, is that you can refill this at a water fountain or a sink with cold tap water, and it'll immediately re-chill the bar after you've heated it up with your body temperature. Okay, so that's one thing we've learned, right? Use it with water. We can't emphasize that enough, right? What else have we learned? Well, one thing we've learned from people doing interval training and looking at their heart rate, we're noticing that their heart rate drops dramatically faster during their rest interval when they're holding the cooling device versus when they're not. Okay, so this can be beneficial in a number of ways, right? So if we want to start from a lower heart rate, we're probably going to be able to give a bigger effort during that next interval. And if we can continue to do that, those big efforts accumulate over the course of a workout and over the course of a training period, and that leads to improved fitness. Okay, so using this during your rest break, if you're watching your heart rate, you'll probably notice that your heart rate drops faster on those intervals when you're palm cooling versus on the intervals when you're not palm cooling. Other things we've seen, a lot of the research was done with a 3-minute rest break between sets. So a lot of the early research from Dr. Heller at Stanford and others would do some type of strength test and then have a 3-minute rest break and then retest. Well, we repeated that test, and we did find improvements in performance of up to 18%, which is pretty significant. But when we tested other protocols, we found that 60 to 90 seconds actually showed a bigger difference in performance. So again, with the 3-minute rest break, I saw an 18% bump in performance, which was awesome. But when I did a 60-second rest break, I actually saw a 28 to 30% improvement in performance. And I just think that makes sense, as a shorter rest break is probably going to lead to a more sustained more elevated body temperature compared to when you're not compared to a 3-minute rest break. Okay, so this works well for many competitions and for many types of workouts. Most people are comfortable taking a minute break between a set. We get out to 3 minutes, we feel like we're standing around not accomplishing enough. Okay, so again, 3 minutes is valuable to palm cool. You get into that 60 to 90 second rest period, it might even be more valuable. You're going to see and feel a bigger difference in your workout performance. Okay, and that carries over into a lot of sports. Many sports like tennis and basketball, volleyball, all have have quite a few breaks within the action that are roughly around 1 minute long. And so if we're palm cooling during that time frame, we're going to see really big performance improvements. All right. And then one other thing I just wanted to mention is that as we got into the summer months, we just had a big drive to learn about and acquire our cooling device from people who competed out in the summer heat, okay? So our body is always trying to negotiate its body temperature and regulate body temperature as it exercises. In the winter, most of that, and it's depending on where you live, but in the winter, that's primarily driven internally by how hard you're working, okay? In the summer, though, we add the external heat from the sun and humidity, and those hamper our internal ability, the ways we typically cool through perspiration and evaporation. We get rid of heat, in that forms. But when you are in a very hot temperature, in a very humid climate, it is very hard for your body to regulate heat because that system doesn't work as well. So that makes palmar cooling even more important to just combat the heat and humidity of the day, but then also if you're working hard in that, the palmar cooling becomes that much more important to sustain a high level of effort and performance, okay? So increasing body temperature leads to increased amounts of fatigue in a few ways, and we can help mitigate that by dumping heat out of our palms.